Victorian London, a time of gas lamps, grand architecture, and supposed enlightenment. But beneath that polished surface lurked a darkness so profound, so utterly dehumanizing, that most history books conveniently sweep it under the rug. Forget your picturesque images of promenades and tea parties. We're about to expose the shocking hidden truth of Victorian society. Human zoos. You heard that right. Not animals. People. Living, breathing human beings. Put on display for the amusement and education of polite society. We're talking about men, women, and children from indigenous cultures across the globe. Africans, Native Americans, Inuit, Filipinos. Shipped to Europe and exhibited like exotic animals. Imagine this. You're a Victorian family enjoying a day out. You stroll past the lions, the elephants, and then you arrive at the savage village. Here, you see a group of people dressed in traditional, often fabricated, attire, living in huts constructed for the show. They eat, sleep, perform rituals, all under the constant voyeuristic gaze of thousands of spectators. Their privacy, non-existent. Their dignity, stripped away for entertainment. These weren't educational ethnology displays, as they were often marketed. These were spectacles. People would go up, point, even throw food. There were shows where these individuals were made to reenact tribal hunts or dances. The goal wasn't to understand. It was to reinforce a narrative of European superiority, of civilized versus savage. How did this happen? How did a society that preached morality justify parading people like curiosities? It was all built on a foundation of blatant lies and twisted science. The promoters, often ruthless businessmen, promised audiences an authentic glimpse into primitive life. What they delivered was pure fabrication. They would dress these individuals in costumes that bore little resemblance to their actual culture. They'd invent backstories, exaggerate savage customs, and even force them to speak in guttural, fabricated languages to enhance the exoticism. Audiences were told they were witnessing living proof of evolution, a step below European man. This wasn't science. It was racism masquerading as enlightenment. What you won't hear in polite history books is that these exhibits were often victims of coercion, deception, or desperate poverty. Many were promised fame, fortune, or education, only to find themselves imprisoned in these displays, thousands of miles from home. Their contracts? Often exploitative, ensuring they received a pittance while promoters made a fortune. The conditions in these human zoos were appalling. Imagine being taken from your homeland, often a warm climate, and forced to live in flimsy, unheated huts in the freezing European winter. Health was a constant crisis. Many suffered from pneumonia, tuberculosis, and other illnesses they had no immunity to. Food was often inadequate. Living spaces cramped and unsanitary. Children were born in these villages, never knowing life outside the gaze of the public. The mortality rates were devastatingly high. It wasn't uncommon for individuals to die within months or a few short years of arriving. What happened when they died? They were often buried in unmarked graves, far from their ancestral lands. Their families, if they even knew, had no way to repatriate their loved ones. Some bodies were even subjected to further scientific study. Dissected, their skeletons kept in museums. This was the ultimate violation, even in death. Human zoos weren't just a London phenomenon. They flourished across Europe and America, drawing millions of visitors in cities like Paris, Berlin, Hamburg, and New York. Figures like Oda Benga and Beauty Man displayed in the Bronx zoo alongside an orangutan became tragic symbols of this era. His story, like so many others, is one of profound exploitation and the crushing weight of systemic racism. What makes this history so chilling is how easily it was accepted, even celebrated, by societies that considered themselves the pinnacle of civilization. Intellectuals, politicians, even church leaders often endorsed these displays, solidifying racist ideologies for generations. The legacy of human zoos lives on in the ongoing struggles for indigenous rights, in the repatriation of ancestral remains, and in the difficult conversations we're finally having about colonialism and its lasting scars. These were not just forgotten sideshows. They were powerful engines of dehumanization, that shaped global perceptions of race for over a century, and the names of those who suffered largely erased from the popular historical narrative. So why isn't this taught in every history class? Why aren't these images as iconic as the Houses of Parliament or the Eiffel Tower? Because it's uncomfortable, it's ugly, it exposes a profound moral failing at the heart of so-called enlightened Western society. It challenges the romanticized version of history we prefer to tell ourselves, but ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. The human zoos were a real, horrifying chapter, a stark reminder of what happens when prejudice, profit, and pseudoscience combine. It's a truth that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about power, ethics, and the very definition of humanity. If this glimpse into a truly bizarre and horrific corner of history made you rethink everything you thought you knew about the Victorian era, then you need to hit that subscribe button. Because the past is far more disturbing and far less black and white than the textbooks want you to believe. And trust me, we've only scratched the surface.